But now I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by the Brexit Secretary, David Davis. Very good to see you. Let's just get on to the process. So, talking to EU officials the other day, they say that the next big event in terms of the negotiation will be a meeting either with you or whoever Labour wins their Brexit secretary.
And if I'm not sacked, all right.
If you're not sacked. But anyway, on the assumption you're still in the job, they say the next big event will be a meeting between you and Michel Barnier, their main negotiator, at the end of June. And that will be a conversation about the mandate they've published for how these talks will go. So, do you accept the structure that they put on these talks broadly, that you have to talk about money, migrants and Ireland before you get on to trade?
Not entirely, and that'll be the first discussion.
So which bit of that don't you accept?
Well, money and Ireland.
Well, look, let's get on to the hard facts, which is, you know, you are going to have to talk to Michel Barnier about his proposals for how we do the negotiation, and you've already said that you don't accept that money has to be, he says, the formula for how much we pay them has to be decided before we get on to trade talks. And you're saying you're having none of that. Is that right?
Well, what we've said is Article 50 says that, you know, you'll decide what is now called the divorce arrangement, but you know, the separation, taking into account the ongoing relationship. Well, how can you take into account an ongoing relationship which doesn't exist yet? So, and we take the view, we've got this big, very ambitious free trade agreement we want to undertake. We want to get on with that as soon as possible. Not to hang around while, you know, because what happens then? That becomes pressure on us. The negotiating pressure is on us. This is why it's designed this way, to get over the most difficult bit, the funding and Northern Ireland, before we do anything else. And Northern Ireland, by the way, how on earth do you resolve the border, the issue of the border with Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, unless you know what our general borders policy is, what the customs agreement is, what the free trade agreement is, whether you need to charge tariffs at the border or not? You can't decide one without the other. It's wholly illogical, and we happen to think are the wrong interpretation of the treaty. So that'll be the row of the summer.
But the UK has yet to decide, and Article 50 has been triggered, so negotiations have to begin between Mr Davis and his opposite number, Michel Barnier. This day was about setting the tone. Already they decided talks will happen in English and French 1 week a month. They swapped gifts on a mountaineering theme. Many believe in front of them is a mountain to climb. The first item on the talks agenda will be how to secure citizens' rights in future for EU citizens in the UK, UK citizens in the EU, how to calculate the UK's financial obligations to the EU, and how to avoid new border controls between the UK and Ireland.
Well, our Europe editor James Mates is in Brussels. So, James, has the UK then caved into the EU over the way these talks are actually going to be conducted?
Well, pretty much, yes. One of the reasons they talked about progress today is that London has agreed to do it exactly as the rest of the EU said it was going to happen, right up until the weekend. London had insisted, we want to talk about our eventual trade relationship, a trade deal, alongside the divorce issues of citizens' rights and the Brexit bill. Well, it turns out we're going to do it exactly as Europe wanted to. First, those tricky issues, and only when enough progress has been made on that. In other words, only after we've effectively agreed to the Brexit bill will they talk about our future trade relationship, which does, it seems, illustrate just how weak the UK's negotiating position is going to be in these talks, because the clock is ticking and it's ticking against us, and there's really not going to be very much leverage. Michel Barnier was asked, could you name one concession that you have made to the British in these talks today? And he simply looked and said, well, it was them who asked to leave.